Welcome to the Business Advisor Hot Seat. I'm George Sandman, founder and CEO. And in the hot seat every week are senior pros like you sharing their tips, tricks, and techniques for delivering client wins. So we're going to cover a lot of the methodology and process that's it's in my book, The Growth Driving Advisor. So if learning how to be better at doing what you do, learning what others are doing is important to you, listen up, strap in, and let's go. Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. And this week here in the hot seat, we have Brad Eure and Clay Eure of Eure Consulting. I'm excited for Charlottesville, Virginia. Actually, we have some other people in the network in your neck of the woods in the community. Welcome. And rather than me try to describe why you do what you do, why clients hire you, I'm going to turn the mic over to you and welcome. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for having us. So we are small business consultants based in Charlottesville, Virginia. And our goal is to help connect owners to their ideal futures. And most of that looks like helping them get more value out of their company and helping it run more effectively without them being the hub of the wheel, the one pushing all the buttons and answering all the calls and sending all the emails. And we've learned how to do that because Brad had his own experience in small business, ran small business radio station here in Charlottesville for 30 some years. And I'll let you take it from there, Brad.
I'm looking forward to hearing.
So I was that guy, the guy that we try to coach, who was the bottleneck, there in the morning first, last one to leave, had to be the smartest guy in the room, have all the answers. And I read Michael Gerber's Entrepreneurial Myth book, and in the entry or first part of the book, he says, you don't own a business to be the hub of the wheel. And I got this all wrong. So I followed, Michael had a system at the time. I don't know if he still does or not. That was really the precursor to scaling and traction.
Yeah.
Really had it all laid out, made it easy for people to follow. I set about doing those things so I could stop being the hub of the wheel, and it worked. I mean, I put my primary aim out there, shared it with the company. We reached all our goals, was able to take vacations, and had no intent on selling. The business was doing great. Our cash flow was wonderful, and I was on the board of the National Association of Broadcasters at the time, and every meeting, this guy from Detroit would say, "Hey, sell me your station, sell me your station." And I just would ignore him. And after a while, and kind of seeing what was happening to radio, at the time they were fighting XM and Sirius merger, and the real competition wasn't, and still isn't, XM and Sirius. They take listeners, yes, but it's really the internet. So you now have a radio station on your phone. So they didn't really see that coming or were ignoring it. And I kind of saw the loss of delivery. The monopoly was going to be gone. So finally I said, okay, sure, I'll sell it to you. Let me know. So he followed up, and we ended up selling for 14 times EBITDA, which for a market the size of Charlottesville, I don't think will ever be repeated. So I nailed the exit. I did everything right. Cash flow was maximized. Got what the most value we could, but I didn't stick the landing. I didn't think about life after. And I said, well, I'll stick around and, I'll continue to run the group of stations. And I didn't like that. So we closed in April, and by October I was gone. It wasn't my baby. I guess I'd just like to be an entrepreneur and be in charge. So I kind of drifted for a while. Clay came up a name for me at that time. She called me a Dommy. It was a mix of a dad and a mom. And
a stay-at-home dad, basically.
Yeah.
Which for some reason wasn't very fulfilling for him.
No, I didn't like that either. Well, eventually decided, hey, let me share what I've learned, and started the consulting business. And I would call it by the seat of my pants. That's how I did it. I'd work with the CEO and help them understand what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, what they can do better. Stop, start, continue. Clay joined the company
2013. Yeah.
2013. And said, you're all over the place. Let's get some process to this, so that it makes it easier for us to repeat what we're doing. So I'll let her tell you about what she's developed. but that's where we are today. So continue to help business owners reach that end goal.
Get better at doing what they do. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clay, so what'd you find and what'd you do? So
So
you
yeah,
ended up being an advisor to the advisor, right?
in a way, I'm just a much more systematic person than Brad is. I like to have, a set process, know what I'm doing, know what's coming next. And I think that provides a good level of clarity for the clients as well, of
Yeah,
knowing,
of course.
hey, here's how we're going to walk you through this. These are the kind of outcomes you can expect at each step. So I took everything that was in his head that he was kind of doing one-offs here. As soon as someone would mention something, he'd be like, okay, great, let's do that, or let's do that. So I put it into a system that we call PSE, People, Strategy, Execution. Those are the three legs of every company stool, and all three need to be strong. So people is all about getting the right people in the right seats, making sure they know what to do, they know how to do it, and their managers know how to lead and manage them effectively.
Yep.
Strategy is all about clarity and alignment, making sure everyone's on the same page about who you are, what you do, why you do it, where you're going. And execution, which we've actually found to be the weakest leg of the stool for most companies, is how to make it all happen. So making sure that there is accountability and communication embedded in the company, holding people accountable to reaching their goals and making sure that you're moving forward on step-by-step basis throughout the year.
I love that. No wonder we get along. I love that. I'm like, yes. Terrific. This episode is brought to you by the Growth Drive Summit. Our theme this year is building a profitable advisory business. Join us in Charleston, South Carolina, October 6th, 7th, and 8th. Expand your network, learn new skills, and generally have a good time. This is a top-rated event. We're looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you. That's awesome. So how do you qualify the businesses with whom you want to work? Let's ask that question first, and then I probably have a follow-on.
Sure. So we try to work with companies that are between 20 and 200 employees.
Okay.
That are within driving distance of Charlottesville. We like to be able to be there in person to work with them on a quarterly basis. We do a full day with the leadership team. So I like to be there in person to make that happen. And in general, when we're speaking to CEOs and trying to understand whether we can help their organization, a lot of it comes down to their coachability and their growth mindset, if you will.
Okay.
We like to work with people who know that they don't know everything. There is more to learn, and who are eager to do what they need to do to get the company running more effectively. So I wouldn't say it's super quantitative, more qualitative.
Yeah, it sounds like you're looking for vulnerability and commitment, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I
terrific.
think you need to definitely be willing to admit that they can grow, and ideally they're willing to admit that they as an individual have growth, not just their leadership team.
Well, and I love as a Brad, you can stand in the room and say, listen, I hear you. I know it. I literally sat in your seat. Yeah. Yeah. You do not want to be the hub of the wheel.
That's very helpful. And it was getting to that point. And in men, we usually see it in their piece that they realize that they don't have all the answers and they need help. And they say, yeah, I can learn. I don't have to do it all myself. Women leaders, strangely enough, I don't think strangely enough, but in this world, they're much more attuned
Yes.
to their strengths and weaknesses
100%.
and come to it much sooner.
Yeah.
Much more willing to ask for help.
100%. It's interesting you say that people come into it in their 40s, and let's tease that out a little bit. First of all, if somebody says, well, my client's 37 years old, you'll hear me make a sound something like this, because, right? Because they don't know what they don't know, and they're still fueled by a lot of adrenaline and probably some early successes. And they haven't had to let go of the vine or leap the chasm or whatever analogy you want to use. And
Yes.
I will bang the gong. When we were in the green room, I said to Clay, listen, I hope you have the time to make it to the summit and that you see value in attending. And we have challenged all the women that were in the summit last year to please bring a female colleague. I love working with women advisors and CEOs, and I think it gets to that vulnerability. It's clearly not a lack of intelligence or ability. But it is a much more willing to listen, a little less of that testosterone wall. And yeah, I'm not surprised to hear you make that comment. I know there's a massive, I just came back from Lido in LA. Lido Consulting did a conference. And one of the topics was this massive transfer of wealth that's going to take place over the next few years to women. I know you guys, that's probably not a topic, a rabbit hole we need to go down, but there's a massive transfer taking place. And I'd love to hear that you're tuned into it. Yeah, because I see you both shaking your heads. So
Yes.
Yeah.
So so qualifying clients, and then and you hit on, you work with them, so you show up, and what's your process? Discovery, planning, and then leading execution. And I know you use the growth drive system. I'm not looking for an infomercial on what you find useful in the community, but I'm really interested in your process.
Well, I'll speak to that just a little bit. So the growth drive is the clarity tool is extremely important for motivation, because as you said earlier, hey, the business has had some success, but to use a SEPA term, you want to be a significant business, or, is this a lifestyle business? And when you point that out to someone who really is comfortable, and being able to use clarity to show them, hey, your rainbow is going to be a little short. You're not going to quite reach that pot of gold. We need to work on some things. That motivation, that understanding of where they need to get to really helps.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Nothing like peeling off the scales and yeah, helping them understand it may feel good right now, but the Snyders are talking, EPI is talking, and I love it, about business of substance. Something you're going to hear me start talking about, that I've been working, playing around with in my mind, is the concept of an irresistible business. Right? How do we create irresistible businesses, and irresistible to an array? You know how I always talk about, all the people who count on the business, but irresistible to customers. And what does that look like from a culture and operational perspective? Anyway, yeah, you need to take this business that's delivering well for you and turn it into something else. We talked yesterday in the coffee clutch about the immortal business. And it sounds like what you're trying to communicate. Hey, man, this thing needs to be bigger than what you have now.
Right.
So you go through a discovery process. Thank you for using clarity. How's it roll out from there?
So from there, that's usually with the CEO. Then we sometimes bring the leadership team and have them do clarity so we can do comparison. If the CEO doesn't really feel like that's necessary and they want to just get started, we have an initial meeting with that leadership team to get buy-in to the process, just kind of lay it out. Here's what to expect. And then we start work, which is the first 4 months. We're meeting once a month for a full day with those leaders, making sure that we are teaching them the tools, introducing the concepts, giving them 30 days in between to practice and play around with them and see what works for them and what doesn't. We are extremely flexible on which tools they want to use. We have some tenets that we want them to follow, but exactly how they accomplish that can be, edited or changed as needed. And after those first 4 months, then we move to a quarterly basis. So we're meeting with that leadership team for that full day just every 90, and they're off executing for those 90 days in between.
Awesome.
And I will come in and help with projects, getting some processes and procedures written down, usually lacking in most of our clients. Job descriptions, really shoring up kind of that protecting of the company, making sure that everything is running smoothly and is as repeatable as possible.
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. So full day for 4 months, man, gosh, I'd love to be a fly on the wall in those meetings. And then, did you say a full day, Clay, every quarter? Are you doing those off-site? Are those typically on-site or off-site?
Depends on the client, but yes, generally yes. A lot of our clients don't have a large enough building off-site. They usually don't have a large enough conference room for us to be in all day, every day. And we prefer to be off-site so they're not getting interrupted. We have our break and they go grab a cup of coffee and then someone snags them and said, I got a quick question for you. 30 minutes later, they come back.
Yeah, they're checking their phones and I love that. That's funny. In my book, I point out, like, get them off-site. And you hear that in the community a lot, like get them out of there, get them off-site. I mean, I think, that's just a best practice across, no matter what people are using as their fundamental methodology. Very cool. And so you work.
That's the
Go ahead, Brad.
I was going to say at the 1 year mark, we use our stages of growth tool to help them understand where they are. This is work by James Fisher
Yep.
and series of assessments and helping them understand that, a company with 20 employees needs different processes and systems than a company of 60. And everything's in constant change. It's never finished. There's always a new challenge, and kind of how do you accept that? The companies that we were able to do that with, along with some team building, helping CEOs and leadership team be vulnerable, were really quick to pivot during COVID. So we could see the difference immediately, that they knew how to problem solve. They got the politics out of the way and were able to really dive in on the issue and solve it.
Man, that is a fantastic point. The data's in on that one. I thoroughly agree. Can we take that and talk about? We're experiencing some market uncertainty right now. How are you seeing that? Are you? I guess, and if you are, how is it that? What it sounds as though you're referring to as a resilient business. How are those businesses doing today?
Well, when we get those leadership teams really focused on the primary aim or the unifying goal, BHAG, they're better able to have discussions about what is the best choice for the company.
I love that.
And that gets their egos out of the way, gets the politics out of the way, so they can just focus, okay, we have X amount of resources. We believe this is our largest problem. How are we all going to work towards solving that? So even with this uncertainty now, they're better able to create contingency plans. They're creating some shorter term plans of until we know exactly what the tariffs are going to be, let's push in this direction. And once we have more finality, then we can pivot if we need to. So they're, again, just better able to work through it as a team, as opposed to me trying to defend my domain and Brad trying to defend his.
I love that. And I'm not surprised. Good for you, man. Your clients are lucky to have you. Brad, go ahead.
So where we saw this rapid change the most was with a software as a service company called OpsGenie, and they were growing rapidly, doubling in size every year, revenue growth. Had a very practical owner. He had taken some money, some PE money, but he was very, very concerned with overspending, and he was able to fund his growth through operations, which was really phenomenal. But being able to help him understand where his team needed to be. If you could double again this year, this is the kind of leadership team you need. This person you're talking to doesn't have the chops. You don't have time to train them. You need to hire for this. He was really quick to go out and get the right financial brain power and as well as sales. And did extremely well. 3 years later, it was about a 10x he sold to Atlassian.
Oh, he sold to Atlassian.
It
Nice. Yeah.
It was fun. It was fun to be involved in that and watch and help him get there.
So an absolutely successful transition. Did he stay at the helm? Did he have an earnout?
He had a little bump, so he was there for a year. Being the massive company that Atlassian is,
Yeah.
didn't appreciate his his function
I had a friend
and
go
how he
through that. Yeah.
worked.
Yeah. They were like,
Yeah.
actually, you can stop coming in. Well, let's just keep paying you, but
Yeah.
just don't come in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's an interesting concept for clients to understand. It's like, and that gets back to my comment about the immortal business. Like, your business is going on to greater glory, and you're out of here. How is he doing? Are you still in contact with him?
Yeah, I just messaged him on LinkedIn this week. He was talking about how I guess 10 years ago there was just money pouring into any technically oriented firm and go, and the money's drying up, and you've got to know how to operate. You just can't throw money at everything and have all this fluff. You've got to be And I commented that he's perfect for that world.
Yeah, I love.
He's been able to take what he earned out of the buyout. Now he's investing in other companies as well.
That's
So
awesome. I actually
he's kind of
bumped. That's
perpetuating that.
awesome. And bringing everything that he know and that experience of a successful exit as you've had to the table. Yeah, it's interesting. You know, at the end of the
Yeah.
day, there can be a lot of excitement, and you just described it, and I love this. There can be a lot of excitement in a space, in an industry. I mean, we're seeing some industries that are white hot right now. Beware, kids. The fundamentals have to be good, right? Because that irrational money at some point is going to want some rational behavior. And that always, essentially is always the case. I'm an attorney. I never say always, but that's essentially the case. Very cool.
That reminded me of something else, getting back to the motivation that clarity provides, because a lot of times these owners have long-term employees that are very loyal. They've gotten you here, but they can't get you there.
Yeah.
And you need the motivation of, hey, look, this is where you need to go. And this person is a great person, but they're not what you need right now. They can't help you reach your goal. And that motivation is important. And it's not to be cruel.
Yeah.
They don't want to be cruel, and they're not cruel, but just understanding that, hey, you're third baseman, you need to upgrade. You need somebody that can hit as well as field. And we've got to go get that talent.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I love to hear you describe that, Brad. You know, we don't have this conversation very often. We talk about it in the C3D certification course, but as we start increasing the professionalism of the firm, and I'll comment, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. You know, as we increase the professionalism of the firm, there's some people who will vote themselves off the island, and some people who will want to cling to their role, even though they're clearly, they may or may not realize that they're outgunned by the demands, the demands of the growing company. Because you said it earlier, a 20-person business has radically different needs and accountabilities than a 60-person, a 100-person. And sometimes it's hard for the owner. Bob has been with me for 20 years. It's like, yeah, but Bob is not a CFO. Bob is a very good controller, and these are different roles. So I'm sorry, I hogged the mic. What do you, I mean, is that playing out in your world? It sounds like it is. Yeah.
Yeah, almost every day. With every single client, when we start working with pretty much every single client, the leadership team is not where it needs to be.
Yeah.
And it's either because they've been there from the beginning, and so they've just moved up because they've been there the longest, or maybe they were hired in from outside, but that was 20 people ago, and now the role has completely changed. In a lot of our small businesses, they're kind of combining roles into one just because they don't have enough staff and they can't necessarily afford
Yeah. I don't want
that
to
higher
afford.
level. So for instance, one of our nonprofit clients is now searching for a chief development officer, that highest fundraising role, whereas before it was a VP of marketing and development.
Mm-hmm.
And that person who was the VP of marketing and development just got kind of handed development at one point because the CEO was like, I don't have enough time to really spend my efforts here. Why don't you take it on? She didn't have the development background. She's been trying to learn and going to conferences, but just couldn't get there quickly enough. So she's now back to just VP of marketing and is a little upset, but I think overall understands the need for that higher level, more experienced person.
Yeah. And it's an interesting test of loyalty, and we have layers of loyalty, right? And at the end of the day, we all need to go home and sit at the kitchen table and let's sit at the kitchen table. So that's often the becomes the primary loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I'm not surprised. And it's tough because as business owners, we're loyal to our people, right? And we tend to be, sometimes we're overly nice. I mean, do you see this play out? Like, well, Jan needed a promotion. She hadn't had a promotion. We gave her a raise, but she hadn't had a promotion, and so we made her the VP of development, and not really understanding that she was not the ideal person for the role. And now we've created maybe a worse problem, right? Yeah.
Yeah. We also see that loyalty play out in terms of that person not really being a fit for their current role. So they get shifted into a slightly different role and they're not really
Oh,
a good
yeah.
fit for that. So they get shifted to a slightly different role. And they're just pushing the problem around instead of addressing it because they don't want to be mean or come across as mean. And they're not willing to hold someone accountable and just say, listen, I don't think you're the right fit for the company where we are today.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. Do you guys, sort of a compound question, do you get your clients to start keeping score? And if you do, how does keeping score help this issue play out?
Yes, we do keep score. We have every client create a dashboard that
Love
they're
it.
looking at on a weekly
Love
and a
it.
monthly
Yeah.
basis. And they're also creating rocks for that 90-day chunk.
Yep.
What are our biggest objectives to accomplish over the next 90 days? And they have weekly to-dos. So every weekly leadership team meeting, we come in and we say, did you do what you said you would do last week? Yes or no? I mean, we have seen people self-select out once they realize, oh, this isn't just a one-off thing and they're only going to ask me about it once and then forget. They said, I don't want to be a part of this kind of a team. And she, sure enough, did not meet any of her rocks that first quarter. And then halfway through the second quarter, chose to leave the team.
Yeah.
So yes, keeping score is very important. It gives people more objectivity and it also helps them not feel like they're being mean. They still feel, for those long-term employees, it's still hard to pull that Band-Aid off, but it gives them some level of objectivity.
Yeah. I love that.
An area of constant attention is feedback and making it comfortable and expected in the business. So here's your role. Here are the 3, 4, 5 key accountabilities of your role. This is how you did
Yes.
on those things. No, we call it no surprise leadership so that everybody understands where they are.
And we extend it to core values as well. So not only here are the responsibilities of your role, did you meet those, but also are you living up to our core values and how we want you to be working, and having a conversation every month about that as well.
Man, you're hired. I love that. The guiding principles are the thing, and whether you're E-Myth or scaling up or traction or growth drive, there are a lot of great systems out there. I don't think there's anyone, to my knowledge, who says that those guiding principles are not critically important. And I get my phone rings with my client is kind of pushing back. Do they really need guiding principles? That's not a good client if they're not willing to.
Yeah.
It's those bumpers. If you in the C3D course, we use General Mattis's book on, and I include it in the course because of intent, and intent gets to guiding principles, right? If you haven't had a chance to read it, I really recommend it. But yeah, those guiding principles are critically key, and keeping track of. Do you counsel clients to say, okay, they get a question from another one of the leaders, and you can say back, well, okay, well, how do you think we should handle this? And the guiding principles should be sitting in the room and let them come up with the answer. Yeah, do you see that play out?
Definitely. We try to help clients bring those core values to life, so they're not just written on the wall, but when we say team focused, we mean XYZ. This is how you demonstrate that in everyday life.
Yes.
And then it becomes that, the guiding principle, helping make decisions and decide on actions so that there are, again, no surprises with when someone shows up and does something out of character. Hey, that's not part of our core values. This is strike one. Let's make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah,
or if it's
let's not have this conversation again. Yeah. Which is interesting because what you're really saying, what I love that you're illustrating is saying, well, our core value is honesty. I'm like, well, how does that help me be better in my role? Right. Of course I'm going to be honest or not, or fired. Right. Yeah. Well, these are fun conversations because they take unexpected turns. Thanks for sharing that. Well, guys, it's hard to believe we've been chatting for almost 40 minutes, and I've really enjoyed working with both of you. I've really enjoyed working with both of you, so thank you very much. If there was, isn't this a little unfair because I'm springing it on you, but this is the hot seat. If there's one piece of advice, admonition that you would share with your colleagues, you've just shared some really wonderful Wonderful stuff. Thank you. If there was one, sort of one thing, what might it be?
I think going back to the feedback conversation, I will quote Brene Brown and say that clear is kind and unclear is unkind. A lot of our clients think they're being helpful by not admonishing someone or being quote unquote mean to them by telling them not doing something right, or maybe just hinting and hoping that they'll fix it. But they're not doing that person any service by letting them flounder in their role and not giving them the support and the feedback they need to get better. Or to find a job that they might enjoy more somewhere else.
I didn't know that is a fabulous point and a terrific quote. And it's also a great lyric in one of my favorite songs. You've got to be clear to be kind. And yeah, that's fantastic. Oh, you're going to hear me talk about that, Clay. Thank you. Well, I love how it distills such an important truth. Mm-hmm. Okay, guys, listen, thank you very much. I really appreciate you investing the time and sharing as much and as openly as you have. And if there's, do you have any questions for me before we wrap up?
No, just keep doing what you're doing to get your tools get better and better all the time.
Thank you very much. Well, I've got we have some really cool things in the pipeline. So more to come. No rest for the wicked. All right, guys, listen, thank you. Brad, Clay, a real pleasure. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to work with you and to have you in the community. And I hope I'll see you on the Coffee Klatch next week. And thanks. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in. We'll talk soon. This week's episode is brought to you by Growth Drive and the C3D certification. If you're looking to expand your reach and relevance with business owning clients, whether you're a business advisor or a wealth advisor, this is a certification for you. And after completing it, you will understand how to make profits and transferable value M&A price actionable, how to maximize results for your clients. So get the details at growthdrive.com/C3D, scan the QR code, register. Listen, this is the path to building a thriving advisory business based on delivering client wins. Hi, this is George. Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe, like, and please take 2 seconds to leave a review. It tells the world that you like what we're doing, and it helps us understand how we can improve the show. Thank you, and see you next time.